Hi guys, OldRadioAl here. Made the mistake of going to a antique store close to my office at lunchtime today, and I found this thing. It's a 1937 Zenith. It's a 6S 229. You know, by that time tombstones and cathedrals were on their way out. Tabletops were on their way in. It's got that iconic dial that would, be part of the Zenith landscape for all the 40s. Just couldn't pass it by. It was ridiculously low priced, and it doesn't look like it's in too bad a condition. There's some rust, of course. I have some rewiring to do. I think I'm going to make this my next big project. I want to get this done before it gets cold. I figured, well, I can enjoy it for couple of years before it has to go. Excuse me. A little dusty. So there you go. A Zenith out of the door and a Zenith into the door. Man, oh man. Anyway, I don't think I'll have any problems finding a taker for this when the time comes. So, there we go. Probably do like a phased restoration of this, get it working, just working, and then I'll concentrate on everything else, de-rusting and rewiring. Not to mention the cabinet. I'd like to be able to save the finish on this cabinet if I could, but I'm doubtful. Some alligatoring on this side. Front's not too bad. This side's really good. If all the sides were like this, I definitely would not refinish it. But so there you go, guys. Something to look forward to. For me, anyway. So let's go look at some other stuff. I had a recent discussion with my friend Ann, the one who's going to take that Philco console for me. Anyway, it kind of renewed my interest in something I touched on some time back when I did my video on my Silvertone, the wind-up phonograph that I have, of the Victrola, gramophone type. Anyway, that was with the various formats the early players and the records came in, and had some records from her father that she showed me, some Victor records that were termed orthophonic, which was a word that Victor used after 1925, and later RCA Victor. RCA used that well into the 50s, as well as some other you know, the HMV and even, you know, JVC, other Victor related ventures. They all use that word. Anyway, the definition that I got for that word orthophonic, see, can I see right there? If it'll focus. It's orthophonic. It's an orthophonic recording. The definition that I got for that is that it's electrically recorded. And it got me wondering, you know, what's an electrical recording? And also, you know, how were recordings made before they started doing those? Well, acoustical recordings predated electrical recordings. And acoustical recordings were just that. They didn't use a microphone, no amplification. It was pretty much the same way that one of the old players, like my Silvertone, worked, except in reverse. The sound went in the horn, and then it went through a diaphragm that was attached to a cutting stylus, and that recorded on wax. And the wax was then sent to be electroplated to make a master, and you know, the pressings of, like these, the shellac compound, produce these records. This is an acoustical Victor. Awarded first prize Buffalo, St. Louis, and Portland expositions. How about that? This is a single-sided, by the way. Early recording. It's a medley of waltz songs by the Victor Dance Orchestra. Anyway, in 1925, Victor started making, instead of these acousticals, they started making these electrical recordings. And, you know, again, they called the process orthophonic. And they also came out with a Victrola to take advantage of this new sound, because it was considered to be like a, you know, a big leap in quality, sound quality, between the electrical and the acoustical recordings. You might also notice that this label on this one does not have it, right above Nipper the dog. On this one, you'll see that VE. The VE signifies that it's an electrical recording. So, anyway, where was I? They came out in 1925 with these, and they also came out with they called, I think they were actually called orthophonic credenzas, a Victrola, to take advantage of these. And the orthophonic credenza had a coiled internal horn that was 6 foot long, and supposedly, you know, if you can get your hands on one of those, you've got something. So they actually started putting these records out in the spring of 1925, but they didn't really make any kind of announcement about it until November 2nd of that year, and they called that Victor Day. Big advertising campaign. They didn't really announce anything before then because they still had a huge stockpile of these acoustical recordings that they needed to sell, needed to have their dealers sell. So they didn't want to say, oh, these things are obsolete and these are the new thing. I'm sure that's a practice that continues to this day, not just about anything in our latest and greatest society. Anyway, these are a few of the records that were in the cabinet of the Silvertone. This one is a red label. You'll notice where these say Victor, this one says Victrola. And what it was the red labels were of artists that they signed to exclusive music contracts. They were the more well-known artists of the day. This one's John McCormick. It's a Jerome Kern song, I'll be darned. It's a single-sided also. Also, I found out that on the red label that the Red Seal label, they didn't start releasing double-sided like this Orthophonic is a double-sided. It's got songs on both sides. They didn't start releasing those until what was it, 1923, I think I read. So this record is pre-1923, as is this one. This one would have been, 1925 or later. Not sure exactly when. We're going to give a listen to a couple of these. See if we can see a difference. We're going to listen to them on my 1961 Motorola, and the reason for that is the Silvertone predates the electrical recordings, so even if there is some kind of sound quality difference, you're not going to notice it on the Silvertone. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. We'll just see what happens. So yeah, we'll listen to, we'll keep it vocals, so we'll listen to the red label, and we'll listen to this Orthophonic. Both, by the way, do you know the history of Nipper, the dog? He was I think a bull and a fox terrier mixed dog. He belonged to a man in Bristol, in England. His name was Mark Barad, and when Mark Barad died in 1887, Nipper went to live with Mark's brother Francis in Liverpool, who was an artist. And along with Nipper, he also inherited from Mark a cylinder player, the Edison type. And Mark had recorded his own voice on the cylinder player, on some of those wax cylinders. And Francis noticed that when he played those, Nipper would go up and listen at the horn, cocked, that famous cocked head pose, like, where's my master's voice coming from? And it made quite an impression on Francis, I guess, and when Nipper had passed on, he died in 1895, well, in 1898, Francis painted that famous painting, His Master's Voice. really something, really a story, you know. So anyway, after a few changes, he changed the cylinder player into, you know, this disc player. The painting was quite popular, I guess, and it was marketed first to Gramophone and HMV, and later by Victor, and ultimately RCA after the 1929 merger. So let's just take a couple of these over, and we'll drop them on the Motorola and see what they sound like. Alright guys, first we're going to do the Acoustical, The First Rose of Summer by John McCormick. See what that sounds like. We're going to gently place this on the turntable. I don't like to drop these shellac discs onto a turntable. I've had a few of them break. Another thing you'll notice is that with these older acoustical recordings, there's no lead-in track and no run-in track on the end of the record. You just put it on and hope gravity takes its course and it starts playing. Here we go.
I have often heard this woman of a lovely laugh, but it's not true, for I've got you and I mean to hold you back. Other girls have smiled and I smile right back at them too, but you're the first girl in all my life that I have asked to be my first wife. Nobody could fill that place but you. The first rose in the garden blooming is the first smile on the face of spring, the first song heard from the bluebird makes your eyes fill with such a heart thrill. The first kiss that you gave your sweetheart is the fondness that you recall, and the first rose that blooms December is like your first love, the best of all.
So that was the acoustic recording. Now we're going to do this one, the orthophonic. It is "The Parlor is a Pleasant Place to Sit in Sunday Night" by Frank Crummett. Again, guys, these records are, they're old records, and they're going to sound like old records. I'm just interested to see if, like, the instruments and the voices sound noticeably different. Rocket, what are you up to, buddy? Yeah, Mario. These guys, when the front door is open, they bark at everything. Now, this is the Orthophonic, and it does have a run-in track and run-out track.
The light is in the parlor, the fire is on the grate. The clock upon the mantel ticks out, it's getting late. The curtains for the windows are made of snowy white. The parlor is a pleasant place to sit in Sunday night. There are books upon the table and pictures on the wall. And there's a pretty sofa, but the sofa isn't all. If I am not mistaken, I'm sure that I am right. I see somebody sitting there this pleasant Sunday night. They sit so close together, at first I cannot see how many's on the sofa, but I don't think there are three. The clock upon the mantel ticks out with all its light. It will soon be Monday morning instead of Sunday night. The light is burning dimly, the fire is getting low. When somebody says to somebody else, it's time for me to go. And then I hear a whisper, so gentle and so light. Oh, don't forget to come again another Sunday night.
Catch the arm there. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the little foray back into history. By the way, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but sitting on top of the Philco console, a little nod to Nipper. Not the same kind of dog, but listening to a gramophone. This dog was actually a casting made by one of my uncles, long since gone. But a little nod. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to get back to this Zenith, which I'm sure you are thinking, what is he doing with a radio that he's only going to be able to enjoy for a couple of years? But hey, what can I say? That black dial was calling to me. So thanks for watching, and more radios on the way.